Hello there,
Hello.
and welcome to Shooting the Breeze. You did the pew pew this time.
Yeah, I didn't do it the last two times.
That's right. Welcome to Shooting the Breeze. And my name's Sham, like Sham and Natsuo.
My name's Natsuo. Like, what?
Natsuo the gecko.
Natsuo the gecko.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And today, this is what I want to talk about, but Natsuo, Nat the gecko, doesn't want to talk about it because it's a little bit controversial.
Yeah.
Controversial means something that makes people talk about it. So something that makes lots of people talk about this issue. So for example, Donald Trump was a controversial president because a lot of people talked about him, and it usually is not a good conversation. It's not usually a good thing. Usually good things are not controversial. Usually.
Yeah.
So the thing that I want to talk about is Joe Rogan and Spotify. So I know a lot of Japanese people will know about Spotify, but maybe a lot of people won't know about Joe Rogan. Do you know, can you explain quickly who is Joe Rogan?
Joe Rogan? Joe Rogan started as like a stand-up comedian, I think, and then he was the host of a pretty popular show. A pretty popular show in the United States called Fear Factor.
Really?
Which isn't really important, but it was a show where like people did stuff like scary things to win money.
Okay, to win money.
And then I think he's also really famous for his sort of involvement in the mixed martial arts world.
Oh, so that connects us to Conor McGregor, doesn't it?
Sure.
Okay. What is he most famous for now, globally?
Globally, I guess. I mean, his first podcast. I don't know him. I only sort of know him from sort of the MMA stuff because he's a commentator for the UFC.
Yeah.
But I guess most people at this point know him from the Joe Rogan Experience, which is his podcast.
The Joe Rogan Experience, his podcast.
A podcast which will soon overtake in terms of popularity, most likely.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. We're waiting on our $100 million Spotify deal.
Yeah, I mean, this is what happened, yeah. So Joe Rogan was all of those things and an all-round nice guy. We don't hate you, Joe Rogan. He has conversations with many different people. And his podcast is long form. Now, what that means is it's 2 hours long, 3 hours long. One episode.
Yeah, I have to admit, I've never watched a whole episode, so.
Same. But we love your work.
Yeah.
And basically what happens is he has conversations with lots of different guests. So for example, Elon Musk.
Right.
Who else?
I don't know. I guess there's just all sorts of different people, like from the sports world. Just, I guess he has conversations with people that there's like a general, maybe pop culture interest in. Like even though Elon Musk is like this, he owns Tesla, and he's like a business mogul or something. I think that he has a certain pop culture presence or something like that.
He's quite influential.
Yeah.
He does influence especially people like investors, and he has like a lot of memes.
Yeah.
He's involved in a lot of memes, and especially with his Tesla stuff, he is quite relevant in terms of pop culture.
I think so. But it's like musicians, artists, whatever Elon Musk is.
So he interviews these people, asks them questions, and gets their opinions. Now, he had a little bit of controversy around him. He was slightly controversial because he interviewed a doctor who didn't believe in vaccines, or didn't believe in the coronavirus vaccine, or was spreading misinformation
Yeah.
He was accused of spreading misinformation. So misinformation is like wrong information about something.
Right.
So for example, there was the mayor of Osaka. Yeah. You, my guy. You gonna watch this?
We're talking
the mayor
to you.
of Osaka who said, yeah, if you gargle this mouthwash, it kills the coronavirus. And then this mouthwash was sold out immediately. That is misinformation. It doesn't work. So he was accused of spreading misinformation, but really it was his guest that was giving his own opinions.
Yeah, but it's like kind of like a newspaper that chooses to publish a story, you know? It's like he's kind of like the editor of his own podcast, so...
I mean, my argument is that he doesn't actually edit his podcasts. They're just, this is what happens, and then he releases them.
Sure, no, I just mean like, he doesn't...
There was no kind of warning that this might contain false information by Spotify or by Joe Rogan.
Yeah, and also it's like, when you have a really big platform, if you let somebody speak on it, you're kind of giving them a certain degree of legitimacy. I think the reason why people like him is that he has really diverse...
He does have a diverse range of guests.
He has a diverse range of guests, and I guess he has maybe guests on there that wouldn't necessarily be on sort of mainstream news or something, but maybe I guess the same reason people don't like him is that a lot of those guests aren't on those other platforms for probably good reason.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the main thing that he was in trouble for is just the misinformation, but I think it is very good that he does invite not just one type of person. And it's kind of like Trevor Noah on The Daily Show, how they invite left-wing and right-wing politicians and give them, like he had Dan Crenshaw, I think his name is.
I don't know who that
a
is.
Republican. I think his name is Dan Crenshaw. I apologize if I've got that wrong.
Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, he's
Just
very
conservative.
He's conservative, but he speaks sense. He's not extreme right.
Yeah. No, I mean I feel like it's important to like have conversations who think a lot with people who think a lot differently from you and who are from totally different maybe background or have a different perspective on the world than you, because it's easy to like kind of write them off, and maybe some of their ideas are totally nuts or they seem nuts to you, but it is important to see why
they
believe it, because generally people, I think they do things that they think are right. You know, they're not like evil people.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think everyone's trying to do the right thing, but the information about what that right thing is gets mixed up in this kind of machine of like different opinions on in media, like on the internet.
Yeah.
Especially like Facebook and a kind of platform like Facebook, they will push articles onto people that gets them engaged. And usually what people engage with, unfortunately, is things that make them angry.
Yeah.
Things that make them angry or make them want to reply, oh, this is wrong, or you're wrong. Now, Facebook just want engagement, but that's the downfall, is that people engage with this kind of content that they don't agree with. Now, I think the thing about Joe Rogan, the thing that made him why this has such a big effect, why that has affected Joe Rogan, is because Neil Young removed all of his music from Spotify in protest. Basically, Neil Young, the musician, the artist, didn't agree with this. He thought you can either have Joe Rogan or you can have Neil Young. You can't have both. And so he said, look, I'm leaving Spotify. I don't want anything to do with a platform that spreads misinformation. And then there were a few other people, like some smaller celebrities and some people who agreed with that.
Yeah, and then he got in trouble with there was that compilation video of, you don't know about this?
No, I don't
All
know.
the times he had said the N-word
Who's that?
Joe Rogan was made into it. That's originally what I thought you wanted to talk about.
Oh, that?
Yeah, but that was kind of a separate.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
I certainly don't. But that was almost like a separate issue. But I guess yeah. But anyhow, yeah.
And the thing is that the final thing I'll say is that Joe Rogan was given $100 million. That's ichioku doru, $100 million deal so that Spotify can have exclusive rights. Basically, Spotify is the only place you can listen to Joe Rogan's podcast. Spotify paid $100 million to this man, so he was the highest paid host, not just podcast host, I think host in the world. And that was one of the biggest problems.
That he was getting paid so much?
That he was getting paid so much to spread these lies. Basically.
Yeah. It's just kind of like an endorsement of his...
And what I think is quite interesting is that Trevor Noah said this on his on the Daily Show, that he was fringe. Joe Rogan was fringe. Like, he was not mainstream. It was like this fringe corner of the internet that people who listen to podcasts, people who listen to those kind of things, will go and watch that podcast or listen to it.
Sure.
It wasn't a massive... Sorry, that's our timer, because our podcasts go on for too long. We're over time. It's not a place where people... It's not a podcast where people... Loads and loads, like millions and millions of people watch. It's basically a fringe corner of the internet where he can say whatever he wants and people are like, alright, he said this thing, but cool, whatever. But then what Spotify did was pay him all of that money, and now he has become mainstream. He has become prime time. And those things that he said before, where it's just like, oh yeah, it's okay to have those conversations and say those things, it's basically now people who watch mainstream, who watch prime time, they disagree with that, and they disagree with it so fiercely, so strongly, that they will kind of try to cancel him.
And Trevor Noah was for this or against it, or had no opinion?
Yeah, it's just a fact. It's just a statement. Before he was fringe, and now he's mainstream, and that's why this thing has blown.
Because I feel like I saw that clip, and I thought he was sort of saying that.
Are you talking about the N-word thing?
Well, I mean, that was involved with it. I mean, but I think he was just talking about Joe Rogan generally. But my impression was just that, like, he was saying that he was a fringe person in that, like, I was of the opinion that he kind of had a negative attitude towards Joe Rogan generally.
Did you see the clip?
The Trevor Noah clip? I'm pretty sure I saw it. Yeah.
Yes, I only listened to it, and I think the one that I listened to said that he was fringe before, and now this is why it blew up.
Yeah, but he was kind of.
But he did say.
But that's like.
I think I know what you're talking about. You're talking about like when Joe Rogan said something about what it's like to be a black person or something.
No, it wasn't. It was just. I think it was just about. In the midst of all the Joe Rogan controversy. It was just him sort of talking about, just Rogan generally and his place in sort of society now or something. But I think isn't that just generally how things go? It's like things start as being fringe, and then they become more mainstream.
And then you have to be careful. But
it's not unique to.
But then when you become mainstream, you have to kind of censor yourself.
Right, yeah.
You're not able to say or have guests that have such controversial opinions anymore. You have to be more careful about what you say.
Yeah, but it's not like, well, Spotify gave him this platform, right? And it's certainly increased his visibility. But in order to get that platform, he'd already made a transition from probably being this fringe person to he'd already achieved sort of mainstream success to a degree. And otherwise, I mean, Spotify must have assessed his worth at that huge sum of money, and that's because what he was saying appealed to a lot of people. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. What he was saying was right or it's wrong, but I think that's kind of why people like him, because maybe he's talking about things and he's saying things that people, you know, think about, and they don't really. Maybe it resonates with people because they're like, oh, I think this thing, or I've thought about these things, but you know, I haven't had those conversations, or you know, and in a way, it's kind of, maybe it's better to have some of those conversations out in the open. But I also just think that a lot of the popularity of somebody like that just has to do a lot with the failure of other media outlets too. It's like if they're not being honest and if they're just pushing a certain narrative, a story, you know, then there's going to be a general maybe distrust or dissatisfaction. So you can have people like Rogan, who is a comedian he started off as a comedian, right? As did Jon Stewart, who was the host of The Daily Show, and Trevor Noah, right? It's like people depend on these sources of news for a degree of honesty that they don't find in actual serious media. I'm not saying that that Jon Stewart, I'm cursing again, Jon Stewart and Joe Rogan are the same, or Trevor Noah are.
I think they are fairly similar.
They're in
that they want to just have open discussion. I think that's what people should have. It's just discussions. And if you believe something, challenge someone who you disagree with. But I think Joe Rogan, what he was doing was just trying to give someone just give them time to give their opinions, even if their opinions were not.
Yeah, I just don't. What degree of responsibility does he have? Because like, I remember like Jon Stewart was so influential, and his, you know, among like younger liberals in the mid 2000s or something. You know, certainly it was for me. And his thing was like, oh, I'm a comedian.
Yeah.
I'm just a comedian. I'm just a comedian. And everyone was fine with that at the time, because that title sort of gave him a degree of leeway to do and say things that he wouldn't have otherwise, which I think is good. I think it's important to have more flexibility to say things. Like, I think you need to act according to a certain role. You have a certain set of expectations, you know, and I don't know if he sort of falls into that same thing.
Bracket kind of thing.
I mean, he's not. I don't even know what Rogan is at this point. But
yeah, I don't know if he's a comedian. I know he's got a comedy on Netflix, but
I don't think he was very funny. I mean, but
if I'm being 100% honest, I don't think he watches other people's podcasts. I mean, it'll be interesting if he does, but Joe Rogan, I'm not of the opinion that you're very funny. I think you're a great host. I think you're a very good host. I don't think he's very funny.
I can't imagine him being funny. I've never seen...
I tried to watch one of his comedies.
I feel like he's of this genre of comedy that's like... it just doesn't make sense. It just seems like mean, kind of. I don't know what it is. It's like angry comedy or something. Like, he just strikes me as angry. Like, in his comedy.
Oh, okay.
But maybe, I don't know. I haven't really seen it.
Well, look, we've gone over time. It's difficult to talk about this in just 10 minutes, to be honest. So I apologise for going over time again. If you do have a chance, if you do have Spotify, have a listen to Joe Rogan's podcasts.
We're endorsing Joe Rogan now.
Oh man, look. I don't endorse or the opposite of endorse. What's it?
I don't know what the opposite of endorse is.
I don't know either. But I don't condemn and I don't endorse Joe Rogan.
I just think it's interesting for them
I think it's interesting
to get a sense of what's...
Yeah, to get a different kind of... culturally, it's very interesting, I think. And there are some guests who are very interesting.
Yeah, and maybe see if you think it's what he's doing is questionable, or I don't know.
Yeah. So look, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. We talked about Joe Rogan. Let us know what you want us to talk about next in the comment sections below. And I hope to see you next time. I've been Sham.
I've been Natsuo.
You getting used to saying it?
Yeah, I'm getting used to saying it.
Yeah, because I mean, the first time you said it was about 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
An hour ago now.
I've had a good amount of practice now. I've said it like 3 or 4 times.
Yep, in the last hour.
Yeah.
Have a good morning, evening, afternoon. Whenever you're listening to this, have a good day, good evening.
Just have a good time.
Have a good time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. That one was pretty serious.
That was pretty serious,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah.